Morning friends, happy Monday, how are you doing? Before we start, creator credit time. Thanks to Candice Holmes over on X Twitter. Give her a follow for setting us up with this lovely montage and the commentary. William, the hardest year I've ever had. And this is not the first time that he said this. Over the weekend, he also said that sleep is a very important part of his life. Not ending the homelessness crisis, not the Middle East, not helping out his subjects in the UK, not doing charity work. Sleep is one of the most important things in his life. Anyway, get to the point, Martin. While the rest of the UK struggle with rising mortgages, rising food costs, rising utility and energy costs, a lack of employment, low education levels, low wage rises, inflation that erodes the wage rise if you actually get one, William has had a really hard year. He literally is a billionaire who lives in luxury in multiple homes in the UK, can travel on private jets, private limos whenever he wants to, and he's had a tough year. What about all those families in the UK on NHS waiting lists, trying to get a career, in debt, trying to build themselves a better life? William does not give them one thought whatsoever. Disgusting. Comments are open as ever. Let me know what you think.
Dear friends, gather close. Pour yourself a cup of tea, settle into your chair and let us spend these next few minutes together unravelling yet another chapter in the eternal saga of gilded palace walls versus the grinding struggles of ordinary people. A headline splashes across the tabloids, bold and gleaming: "William, the hardest year I've ever had." The words are meant to evoke sympathy, to pull at our heartstrings, to remind us that even princes bleed. But the people, the very people whose taxes fund this theatre of sorrow, aren't buying it. And can you blame them? No, my friends, you cannot. For in a nation where hospital corridors overflow with the sick, where food banks have become lifelines rather than last resorts, where children go to bed hungry in one of the world's wealthiest countries, in such a nation, the lament of a prince rings hollow indeed. Prince William, Duke of Cambridge, heir to the throne, second in line to wear the crown that has adorned monarchs for centuries. A man surrounded by palaces, not one but multiple palaces. Estates sprawling across the British countryside. Servants attending to his every need. Security details, private jets when necessary. A life of privilege that most of us cannot even begin to imagine. And yet, in a moment that will surely be studied by public relations students for years to come as a masterclass in what not to do, he tells the world he has endured his toughest year. The newspapers, ever faithful to the crown, echo his lament. They plaster his sorrow across their front pages as though it were the greatest tragedy of our time, as though the heavens themselves wept for the burden placed upon this one man's shoulders. But then, and this is where the story becomes interesting, comes the sharp, unvarnished voice of reality. The voice of the people, unfiltered and unafraid. One tweet, simple yet devastating, cuts through the noise like a sword through silk. While Prince William moans about his toughest year, remember, the royals still live in palaces, tax-free estates, and luxury on our money. Meanwhile, ordinary families battle cancer on NHS waiting lists. Their struggle is our injustice. Read that again, my friends. Let it sink in. Their struggle is our injustice. Not just their misfortune, not just bad luck, but an injustice perpetrated by a system that allows some to live in unimaginable comfort while others suffer and die waiting for basic medical care. Now let us paint a picture, a real picture of what hardship actually looks like in Britain today. Picture Sarah, a single mother of two in Manchester. She works 2 jobs: a morning shift at a care home, an evening shift stacking shelves at a supermarket. Between these jobs, she barely sees her children. She arrives home at 11 at night, exhausted to her bones, only to lie awake worrying about the energy bill that arrived that morning, the one that's doubled since last year. She does the mental arithmetic we all know too well. If I pay the full amount, we can't eat properly this month. If I pay half, they'll cut us off by February. And yet Prince William dare sand. I use that word deliberately. He dares to compare his struggles, whatever they may be, to the suffering of those whose taxes pay for his staff, his homes, his security, his very lifestyle. It is not only tone-deaf, it is insulting. It is a slap in the face to every person struggling to survive in modern Britain. And here, my friends, we arrive at the greatest hypocrisy of all. The monarchy parades itself as a symbol of national unity, a family that embodies British resilience and stoicism. We're all in this together, they seem to say as they wave from golden carriages. But are we? Are we really? Let me ask you this. When was the last time a member of the royal family sat in an NHS waiting room for 8 hours with a sick child? When did they last choose between heating and eating? When did they last worry about making rent? When did they last face the indignity of applying for universal credit, navigating a system designed to humiliate and discourage? The answer, of course, is never. They are insulated completely, utterly insulated from the storms of life that batter the rest of us. They exist in a bubble so complete that they genuinely cannot comprehend what hardship means to ordinary people. No NHS queues for them. They have access to the finest private healthcare money can buy money that, let us not forget, comes largely from the public purse. No sleepless nights wondering if the gas bill can be paid. No choosing between the cheap cereal or the healthy vegetables at the supermarket. No constant grinding anxiety about money that turns your stomach into knots and steals your sleep night after night after night. While nurses strike for fair wages, nurses who save lives every single day while junior doctors work impossible hours for inadequate pay, while cancer patients wait for hospital beds that don't exist because the system is broken and underfunded. What do the Windsors do? They retreat to their tax-free estates. They attend garden parties and polo matches. They complain about their toughest year to sympathetic journalists. They cry hardship into gold-plated goblets while the rest of the country drowns. Is this the compassion we expect from a future king? Is this the leadership that will guide us through the challenges of the 21st century? Or is it simply more of the same tired pageantry, more of the same disconnect between those who rule and those who suffer? Let us talk about money for a moment. Real numbers, real costs, the sovereign grant. The official funding the royal family receives from the taxpayer stands at over £86 million annually. That's £86 million of public money every single year to maintain an institution that many argue is increasingly irrelevant in modern democracy. But wait, my friends, because it doesn't end there. That figure doesn't include security costs, which are estimated to run into the hundreds of millions. It doesn't include the indirect costs of maintaining royal properties, the lost revenue from Crown Estate exemptions, the taxpayer-funded renovations to palaces and castles. Add it all up, and we're talking about a system that costs the British taxpayer somewhere in the region of £300 to £400 million per year, perhaps more. The exact figure is notoriously difficult to pin down because, conveniently, much of royal spending is hidden behind classifications like security concerns and privacy matters. Now imagine just for a moment what that money could do elsewhere. How many nurses could we hire? How many hospital beds could we fund? How many children could we feed? How many elderly people could we keep warm in winter? The defenders of the monarchy will tell you that the royals bring in more than they cost through tourism. But this argument, repeated ad nauseum, falls apart under scrutiny. France abolished its monarchy centuries ago. The Palace of Versailles receives more visitors than Buckingham Palace. The castles of Scotland and Wales would not disappear if we abolished the monarchy. Indeed, we could open them more widely to the public, increasing tourism revenue rather than decreasing it. No, my friends, the economic argument for monarchy is a myth, perpetuated by those who benefit from the status quo. Now, let us turn our attention to Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And I know merely mentioning their names is enough to set off fireworks in certain circles. Whatever their critics may say, and they have no shortage of critics, Harry and Meghan did something that deserves recognition. They stepped away from the taxpayer's purse. They walked away from the system. They chose to build their own lives, to earn their own keep, to chart their own path without public funding. Think about what that means. They surrendered the comfort, the security, the guaranteed income that comes with being working royals. They said, "No, thank you, we'll do it ourselves." And they have. Through their various business ventures, their Netflix deals, their Spotify contracts, you may like what they do, or you may not, but they are earning their own money. They are not asking the British taxpayer to fund their lifestyle. Yes, they've spoken openly of struggles, mental health battles that nearly broke Meghan, relentless attacks from certain quarters of the British press that bordered on harassment, the pain of estrangement from family, the difficulty of being a biracial woman in an institution steeped in centuries of tradition and, let's be honest, prejudice. But here's the crucial difference. Their struggles are raw and human, not gilded in luxury. When Meghan spoke of feeling suicidal, she wasn't doing so from a position of asking for public sympathy while living off public funds. When Harry discussed his mental health challenges, his therapy, his journey toward healing, he was doing so as someone who had stepped away from privilege to live a more authentic life. And when they speak of injustice, whether it's racial injustice, mental health stigma, or media harassment, they do not ask the public to pity them, while simultaneously expecting the public to pay their bills. This is why Harry and Meghan resonate with so many people, particularly younger people who are tired of the old hierarchies and outdated systems. They represent authenticity in a world drowning in pageantry. They represent the possibility of choice, of saying no to a system that demands conformity. They represent, dare I say it, a more modern way of being. Are they perfect? Of course not. No one is. Have they made mistakes? Certainly. But they've also had the courage to walk away from enormous privilege in search of something more meaningful. That takes guts. The people are growing weary, my friends, weary of hearing the woes of a privileged prince while their own woes are ignored, weary of watching the monarchy cling to tradition and pageantry while the nation crumbles under austerity and inequality. That tweet I mentioned earlier, "Abolish the monarchy," is not a fringe cry anymore. It's not the radical ranting of a few Republicans in the corner. It is becoming a chorus, echoing in the streets of Britain, in the hospitals, in the classrooms, in the factories, in the call centres, in every place where ordinary people feel abandoned by the institutions that are supposed to serve them. Poll after poll shows the same trend. Support for the monarchy is declining, particularly among younger people. Nearly half of 18-24-year-olds now believe Britain would be better off without a monarchy. These are not wild-eyed revolutionaries. These are ordinary young people who look at the system and ask a simple, devastating question. Why? Why should we maintain this expensive, outdated institution? What purpose does it serve in a modern democracy? What do we gain from having an unelected head of state living in luxury while the rest of us struggle? And the answers they receive, tradition, stability, tourism, ring increasingly hollow. William's comments about his toughest year have done more to fuel Republican sentiment than 1,000 anti-monarchy pamphlets could have done. Rather than winning sympathy, he has instead fanned the flames of resentment. He has reminded people of the vast gulf between the lives of the royals and the lives of everyone else. And perhaps, just perhaps, that will be his legacy, not as the king who modernized the monarchy, but as the prince whose tone deafness accelerated its decline. Let us step back for a moment, my friends, and ask ourselves a deeper question. What kind of society do we want to be? Do we want to be a society that maintains a hereditary aristocracy, where some are born into wealth and privilege simply because of their bloodline? Or do we want to be a society where everyone, regardless of birth, has an equal chance at success and dignity? Do we want to be a society that spends hundreds of millions on maintaining palaces and royal lifestyles while people die waiting for medical care? Or do we want to be a society that prioritizes the health and well-being of all its citizens? Do we want to be a society that accepts tradition as a justification for inequality? Or do we want to be a society that questions, that challenges, that demands better? These are not abstract questions. They have real consequences for real people. Every pound spent on the monarchy is a pound not spent on the NHS, on schools, on social care, on the infrastructure of a functioning society. The choice is ours. It has always been ours, even if we've been told otherwise. We are not subjects, we are citizens, and citizens have the power and the right to shape the society they live in. So let us remember this, my friends, as we go about our days. Hardship is not measured in castles and crowns, in busy schedules and public scrutiny. It is measured in the weight carried by ordinary men and women each day. The single mother choosing between food and heating, the cancer patient waiting in agony for treatment, the elderly person shivering in their own home, the young person graduating into a world of insecurity and unaffordable housing. William may call this his toughest year, and perhaps in his sheltered world it is. But for Britain's families, for the millions struggling to survive every year, is the toughest year. Every month is a battle. Every week brings new challenges that would break those who have never known real hardship. Harry and Meghan's choice to step away, to live by their own hands rather than by the public purse, shines brighter with each royal misstep. It offers a different vision, imperfect, yes, but at least honest, at least authentic, at least human. And perhaps, just perhaps, the day is coming when the gilded cage of monarchy will no longer bind the British people. When we will look back at this moment and recognise it for what it is, the beginning of the end of an outdated system that has long overstayed its welcome. The question is not whether change will come. Change always comes. The question is whether we will be passive observers or active participants in shaping that change. My friends, stay vigilant, stay questioning. Never let the noise of privilege drown out the truth of the people. Never let pageantry blind you to reality. Never let those who have never known struggle tell you what hardship is. The struggle of the people is the only truth that matters. Their pain is real, their anger is justified, their demand for change is righteous. Until next time, this is Adrian, reminding you that a better world is possible, but only if we have the courage to imagine it and the will to build it. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.